Hello and welcome. I'm delighted to be with you today for this Positive Links speaker series session, The Untapped Power of Discovery: How to Create Change That Inspires a Better Future, presented by the Center for Positive Organizations at the Michigan Ross School of Business. I'm Monica Warline, the faculty director of the Center for Positive Organizations, and I'm thrilled to welcome you on behalf of all of our faculty, staff, and partners. A few notes on technology as we get started. We are in a webinar mode, so we can't see or hear you, unfortunately, but we do have the Q&A feature turned on so you can submit questions for the speaker and upvote questions that others submit. You won't be able to use other features of Zoom, such as chat and raise hand. We do have the live transcription feature enabled for this event. You can toggle that on or off using your toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And I'm delighted to thank our partners in presenting today's speaker series: the Sanger Leadership Center, the Taubert Institute for Global Operations, and the Zell-Lurie Institute for Entrepreneurial Studies help us bring this speaker series to you. We also have promotional partners who help us get the word out, and we'd really like to thank Ann Arbor Spark, the Managerial and Organizational Cognition Division of the Academy of Management, and the Organization Development and Change Division of the Academy of Management for sharing the word about our speaker series. I have two more things to share with you before we start our conversation today, and I'm really excited to share them. The first is that last spring, the Center for Positive Organizations began reimagining what our co-learning consortium can look like. And we have launched a vibrant new model that brings individual and organizational and student members together in learning that happens from every chair, to do boundary breaking conversations across generations, across disciplines, across industries and sectors. Grab that QR code and learn more about it. If you become a member, you get access to things like a special private Ask Me Anything session with some of our distinguished Positive Links speakers, and we'd love to welcome you to that community. We also bring this speaker series to you as an inspiring, science-based strategy to help you and your organization thrive. And we do so free and open to all who attend. It requires all kinds of resources to do this work. And if you appreciate this work, we would gratefully appreciate your support in any way you could possibly give it to us. So thank you for being here today. And I am delighted to welcome a person that I am lucky to call a colleague. I would really, that word almost feels too familiar, Karen, because I think of you as a mentor and a teacher in so many ways. I've learned so much from you and from reading your work. Karen Golden-Biddle is the Questrom Professor Emerita at Boston University. She is a fellow of the Academy of Management, a recipient of several Best Paper awards in the management field, and one of my favorite researchers, thinkers, teachers, and writers about organizational change and change management. And Karen is now in a new phase of her career where she is so passionate about this wonderful book that I want the camera to bring it into focus. It's blurry, I'm sorry. But this is a wonderful book that I hope everyone watching will read: The Untapped Power of Discovery. I have found it incredibly useful and helpful, and I'm on my second trip through the book now, and I know there will be many more reads to come. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me, Monica, and hosting our conversation. I'm really looking forward to this as well. So the learning with each other around that. And I do want to say hello to the people online. And thank you for taking the time to participate in this webinar.
Yes. Hello, and thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah.
Karen, this
Well, we
book,
can't see them, but we know they're
I know,
there.
but we know they're there. We can feel them.
Yeah.
I can feel them.
Yeah.
And so I'm so many of people who have learned from you and who are friends and colleagues, I'm sure, are listening right now. So this your book, Karen, is so beautiful and powerful. And in many ways, if we think of the language that positive organizational scholarship has given us to talk about the world, this is a positive deviance book, right?
Oh.
Like it came from being challenged to look at what is working, what does work, what does help, and to look at the cases, not all the cases where change fails, but what about when change succeeds? And so I wonder, with knowing that, right, for our audience, what else brought you to write this book and be interested in discovery?
Yeah, well, as a field researcher, ethnographer who goes in to study organizations, my own research had noticed that there were change initiatives, especially early on, that didn't quite live up to expectations. I would say over the years, one thing has remained constant about change, and that is like my research showed it, but so too did statistics and research studies and stories about change, that the most difficult task for leaders in navigating is to navigate change that they face. And so and in fact, there was another study recently by Accenture. So if that's they all concur that navigating change is the most difficult task. And Accenture studied 1,000 C-suite people recently. And, I kept trying to think what's missing, but it was really stunning around the difficulties, because they said basically they understand the need for change, but 30%, only 30% of them felt capable in leading change, that they literally lacked confidence in their change capabilities. Amazing. So that still today, that question of what's missing, I knew it wasn't a new change model, but I wasn't sure what it was, to be honest. And it is I did switch the question, instead of looking at the things that are going awry, with the help of colleagues, centers, those kinds of things, I shifted it to let's sample on the dependent variable, essentially, very intentionally and with good reason, good rationale. And I started searching for studies that I could go and do in an organization, and I came upon one, and I leapt on it. I mean, to be honest, I was excited about it. And it was a health system, Delta Care, that's in the book, and I've written an academic paper about it, that it was really an opportunity. It looked like they might create change that made a difference and be successful and be one of those few, the limited few that succeeded. And they developed really innovative, in the end, an innovative model of patient care delivery in the midst of a tough environment. Health sector is a tough environment to do that. And more importantly, well, for me, it's a lasting model for them. For me, they helped me discover the power of discovery.
Yeah.
Sincerely. And through looking at it and writing up that, it just came to life about discovery and the importance of discovery as a process, as an inventive process.
Right.
That is not a model of change, but winds through everything that we do that creates something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do a little bit of first things first here, because
Okay.
I know you're a scholar and you use words very intentionally. So
I'm trying not
we
to.
need to
Yeah.
set the table for listeners about what you mean by discovery, and
Mm.
especially that you mean it's a process, not a model. So you help us unpack that a little bit, and that it's inventive, not
Mhm.
evaluative, and not being popping out of the middle of nowhere, right? So
Right.
that it's inventive is really important too. So can you help all of us understand more of what you mean by discovery?
Sure. I think other than Discovery Channel, which is a common thing, yeah, and Googling, we see discovery thought of mostly as an end result or an outcome. So think breakthrough technology, novel vaccine, or new product innovation. We think in terms of the end point of this. And that's a really constraining view of discovery. So we look at what is discovered and we totally keep mystified the how do we discover, the how part of that. So that's where the process comes in. It's the how part of it. And really it overlooks how it operates. And there's this terrible belief that only experts or scientists or researchers, design thinking people can be the ones who do discovery. And that's simply not true. Anyone can develop the capacity for discovery with certain things that they do. And we're going to talk about some of that today. So anyone can do that. So when I say it's an inventive process, the process is dynamic. It unfolds through change initiatives, innovation, research development kinds of things, continuously through and even beyond. Let's take change today, around change. So that's the process part of it. And it's like this kind of thing that moves through as we do the work that we're doing. And we have ways to catalyze it and also derail it,
Yes.
which
Yes.
creative means it helps us catalyze insights and ahas that yield important new perspectives and understanding about what's going on. And then that yields new possibilities that we'll hear a couple of stories today that we previously never imagined possible as ways going forward. So that's the piece for it. So it's really central to reimagining, rethinking, reorienting beliefs and practices. Hope that
Yes.
helps.
Yes. Well, it helps tremendously. And I want to we're not going to share a visual picture because we want people to go get the book and or get the picture in the book. But we are going to paint a visual circle picture. And you call these three motors, right? And in the circle, you have three motors with beliefs also in the circle. And I wondered, so the three motors for people that are following us here: surprise, doubt, and launching new ways. But
Yes.
I wondered, before we go in specifically to the three motors, Karen, would you talk about the metaphor, like three motors? It's I know you mean the metaphor intentionally, and what should it spark in our intuition?
Well, they help us drive discovery. They help us drive organically a way to look at ill-fitting beliefs. So if we start with belief, belief means it's settled. We don't really think about it too much. Whereas doubt then are questions and it's unsettling and we're going to look uncomfortable to be in. And we really need to go through doubt to reorient beliefs that fit the situation better. So you go, that's belief and doubt. The motors then, surprise, doubt, and launching. Really, I think of it as situated experimentation, the launching. The motors, we actually can use those. We can learn how to respond in a way to surprise, for example, know when we're going into doubt and know that it's normal to feel uncomfortable, those kinds of things. And when we learn this, it helps the cycle be a heuristic of sorts. It just helps us, oh, I get it. I'm stomping around here because I'm in doubt about how I'm going to write this up, or, those kinds of things.
Right.
So that's the metaphor of the motors.
Yeah, well, I think the motors metaphor is so helpful, and it to tap into the intuition that we can actually catalyze these things. They're not just things that happen to us or happen to our systems and our organizations. And I found that part of this book so helpful as well, to ask sort of, how might I increase the surprise around me
Yeah.
so that I'm more in the discovery mindset and I'm invoking the process more.
Right. And it's the other way too, actually, in talking with different team leaders and others around this since the book has come out. It's the surprise, and surprise ignites discovery. Basically, it helps us get through that threshold. And so it opens us up and kind of helps us loosen the hold of our beliefs. And um, some teams are having too many surprises. And so basically what this model also does is
Mm,
to say, we can go in and provisionally look at the surprises. We don't have to go all the way through, and we can pull back on those that aren't so rich in terms of where we want to head. And we can talk more about that later.
yeah,
But that's the surprise that ignites discovery when we embrace it. When we have things like no surprise management that really prevent us from, it tells us a norm to not embrace it for that. But we need to
yeah,
understand it, savor it in order to know what this means. And when I want to make one other thing in connection with beliefs, surprise we think of normally as something unexpected, and it is. And now it could be very positive, a birthday celebration, other kinds of celebrations, and we probably don't need to go into exploration of those too much, except to enjoy them. Surprises then it's when the surprise is not only unexpected, but it challenges our beliefs in some way.
mm,
And when I
mhm,
talk about belief, I'm not talking about religious
mm,
or political beliefs,
mm,
although it may be applied there at some point. I'm really talking about everyday beliefs. And a
mm,
key one right now is where we work, and what are the
yes,
issues about where we work, how
right,
we teach, how I am a student in the classroom. All those are everyday beliefs. What are the norms about growth for this company? How we treat each other, how HR works with employees. All those are the beliefs around that. So those are then challenged, if we start to question it and explore it further, we move into doubt.
right,
And then we explore that, and then if we start to then really try to say, well, what does this look like in practice and so forth, we will go to the site where this situation has the greatest amount of impact and look at how it's playing out. And that's the launching new ways. And so that's kind of a quick way to go through the cycle.
Okay, now we've gone through the cycle in abstraction and
Right.
in the language that set the table for everyone to have the right vocabulary to use for our conversation. But
Right.
another thing I really admire about the book is that it's grounded in stories and rich
Mm,
examples. And I think that will really help everyone listening who hasn't had a chance to read the book grab on in a different
mm,
way. So would you
mm.
share one of the stories, whichever you have chosen that you'd like, that helps illustrate this process?
Okay. Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive, but I've chosen the installation of play pump in Africa. So I purposely drew from a broad range of studies and stories that I could share as lead stories in each chapter to introduce some things. And this is play pump. And let me share it. I'm going to read some quotes. So I have some notes here. But we've got an engineer named Ronnie Stiver. We'll just call him Stiver. And he lived in Africa, witnessed African villagers having severe difficulties accessing clean water. He invented then, to help address that, the solution of the play pump. And the play pump is literally, if you can visualize this, you can go online and Google it, a merry-go-round that is really, it's a device connected with a wellhead. And when children spin and play on the merry-go-round, they actually pump the water into an elevated storage pump. And then so there's gravity-fed clean water. So that's the simple but brilliant technology there. So Stiver and his business partner, Trevor Field, believed that this new technology would ease people's hardships. They had seen villagers go miles for clean water and so forth. And so they really thought of the whole pump, which they've said in writing as the best solution to the water crisis. And they had a lot of early success, positive press. The United States government and the Case Foundation actually created a public-private partnership, and I'll quote here, to provide clean water by 2010 for 10 million people in sub-Sahara Africa. So Field had licensed Play Pump from Stiver, and he believed that they had everything to achieve that installation target. And so this collaboration started. But by 2007, there were some difficulties. Play Pump stopped working in some villages. In some with few children, it went unused. And then reports started to talk about, even though Play Pump was an innovative and robust technology, the strategy of implementation, of installation, was highly problematic. It was technology driven without any other kind of consideration, human consideration. And it required, they said, serious and urgent revision. Nevertheless, Field and the collaboration continued the installation without interruption and without any kind of exploration. And we might say that that report and the difficulties are a surprise, an unexpected event that had happened. And what they chose to do was, rather than explore it, they continued, they stayed the course. And I think how often we stay the course in organizations because operational processes are over prioritized. Anyway, but we'll get to that. But the project then began to unravel, which you might expect. The Case Foundation said it had found significant concerns with maintenance after they had done some pieces. And then, although Play Pump held much promise and hope, the project ended 5 years after it began. So what went wrong? I mean, they had money, they had dedicated collaborators. I gave you a hint of what I'm going to say, which was that they didn't embrace discovery as an ongoing process. They saw discovery, as do many entrepreneurs or inventors. It's a common thing, normal thing to do. They saw discovery as the invention, the technology, rather than as a process that continued through, in this case, installation and beyond. In fact, if they had done that, they may well have been open to seeing some of the difficulties early on and saved the project. But instead, they treated Play Pump as the perfect finished solution, the end result. So they derailed it. They couldn't get it. So there is a final piece to this, and that is the wake-up call. So they never went into doubt and launched new ways. The wake-up call, Case Foundation did some retrospective thinking, and we might think of wake-up calls as anytime something's derailed, there is a wake-up call that we can kind of have a new start to this. They affirmed their belief in clean water, but they challenged the belief of Play Pump as a solution, perfect solution. And they said we had to face our own hard moments when reality set in. So they moved into doubt by saying that. And they stepped back and regrouped in a more effective way. So they reignited it. And I would say AidWatch, an organization at the time, said about this after the wake-up call, in contrast to the official aid world, where old failed solutions keep getting recycled across 60 years. This work by Case Foundation to regroup, the wake-up call, is real progress. So they then ignited discovery.
Thank you. The Play Pump story is endlessly fascinating to me about what it teaches us through your lens. And there's a question that someone in our audience has posed, Karen, that actually this might be a good moment to put our eyes on it. Because I think you can reflect on the Play Pump story and that question. The person wants to know, is this symbiotic with innovation, or what is the relationship of your discussion of discovery with the way people talk about innovation in organizations?
Yeah, so I could take that with new product development might be one way with that. And really, this notion of discovery, which I won't go into it today, but it really has abductive logic associated with it. So we think deductive induction. This is abductive logic, and it absolutely is in laboratories, science, general innovation. And again, you might think of it as a mechanism. It's a process that weaves through the ongoing work that heightens the creativity that is unleashed in
Okay.
what we're doing anyway, in the doing of the
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
So truly,
Thank you for that question. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and truly, like, it helps us illuminate, I think, something that for people who have thought about positive organizational scholarship for a
Uh-huh.
long time will make intuitive sense that you're shining this light carefully on a process that unlocks resources and unleashes capacity,
It truly does.
that's
Yeah.
woven throughout what the organization is already doing anyway,
Mm-hmm.
or could be if we knew how to
Can
do
I
it
say,
and how
it's
to
not like,
unlock.
sorry, it's not
That's
like
okay.
you hold a discovery session, right? It doesn't work that way. In
Right,
fact, it would
right,
fail if we
right.
did that. We take the opportunities when surprise happens in the middle of innovation, and rather than move them away, we bring them forward and really celebrate them to see which ones are most promising in terms of going forward, or in change.
Yeah. Well,
With
let's go into that new product development slash emergence space with the story that you tell about Intuit, because
Okay, oh, sure.
it brings out that surprise element, but it has this dovetailing with innovation and product as well.
Yes, yeah. And I might say that uh, I have Scott Cook's comments right on the page, so I'm going to say them verbatim. So that's if you hear some shuffling here. And if you would, as you listen to the story, and it's a familiar story for people, I'm going to share how discovery was woven into this story. I mean, so you'll get to see, so the prior person talked about innovation, you'll see there's two ways we can bring it in. It's in an intentional project. We can be alert to things or set up exercises to help facilitate and bring surprise forward or doubt. But also things happen in the normal course of doing work. And so this is one of those cases where it happened in the normal course of doing work. So listen for the motors. I think that would be the key thing here. Okay. So this is a while ago, shortly after Intuit launched Quicken, right? You know that financial product for home budget. So it was for the home. It was for home budget management. Scott Cook and his leadership team surveyed customers to learn more about them. And so one of those items was simply, where are you when you use Quicken? It was kind of a write-off. About half of the customers responded that they used it at work. And Cook responded, with his leadership team, well, and a quote, that's weird. We built a home product. They're probably just taking their bills into the office because
Mm,
they don't have a computer at home.
mm. Okay, so I hear us writing off surprise.
Well, it's surprises there, right? Absolutely. They're explaining it away. They are definitely explaining it away. They've got this other rationale that's happening that is just not something that they had expected. And so
Mhm.
they're dismissing it, right?
Okay.
I like your word, writing off. It's gone. In fact, the team didn't think anything more about it until follow-up surveys again showed about half used Quicken at work. Cook at that time shared, it made no sense, which is exactly the time to go into it,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
We ignored it, he said. I ignored it. This trend continued for a couple years. The still unexpected, yet now very persistent survey response started to nag at Cook.
Mm.
It began to cause him some unease, he and the team. Why, he asked, are people answering this question wrong? So you might, okay, there's some censorship happening there or something so
Speaking of
certainly
belief.
some judgment happening there for sure, right? Why are they answering it wrong. This time, then they actually decided to move and go into the customer's workplace to find out what was going on. And so that's how they moved. They didn't really get to doubt until, but it was implicit. Whenever we get a nagging feeling or a hunch or a sense, we often just kind of bury it. We just don't pay attention to it. And he remembered retrospectively that he had this nagging sense. So what is this? But he couldn't still, if you hear that, imagine that there could be something other than their own view of looking at this. And so that's when they went to the various customers' workplaces, they discovered something that didn't make sense to them. So all this, when it doesn't make sense, you are right in the middle of discovery and possibilities here. They observed a practice they had never imagined. So when they went there, they gained some insight, and insights are discoveries. Customers were using Quicken, a home product, to keep the books for their small businesses. Cook reflected, and this is lovely from a standpoint of surprise and discovery. Something else was true, different from our own beliefs. The way customers actually practice accounting in their small business challenged Intuit's belief. So our experience teaches us by means of surprise. And so this is one of those experiences that then put a challenge to Intuit's belief that customers should use formal accounting methods to keep written records of all businesses. This insight enabled them to discover a previously unimagined product need, which led to the development of QuickBooks, which is the company's major giant market opportunity. Now, none of this was, we're going to do discovery. We're going to bring discovery in and use it. It's in the doing of the process of this. So it's easy to just say, okay, before we dismiss something in a conversation, let's spend a little bit of time and explore it a little bit further. And maybe get some alternative views on what that is. Or maybe if we're having trouble getting a sense of handoffs in a hospital, we can go to the site where the issues are. Right? So we're trying to, and actually in Microsoft, Nadella did that at the beginning by saying, we've been optimizing the formula when what we really need to do is discover a new formula. So optimizing is this operational or evaluative process, important to keep things running in the organization. But when we overemphasize those, discovery gets lost. We sequester it in the R&D department, or those kinds of things. So that's where this is so important to say we can do it anytime in any day. So that pretty much, I think probably the statistics, the doubt, the discovery, really by going to the customer, we see that across all kinds of successful initiatives that bring discovery in, of the going in to search and find out what we do not know, not what we know. So yeah. It's a beautiful story that way, for sure.
It is a beautiful story that way. And I like how the story illustrates the opposite of what you encourage us to do when we want to catalyze discovery. Yeah. What you say, we need to savor surprise. Yeah. Which I think sounds so inviting and delicious.
Yeah, and in fact,
also not that easy to do, as the story illustrates.
No, for sure. I do actually have a quote from Cook later, like decades later after this happened, and he's on a, I have to say, just I don't know if it's a soapbox about this of surprise. It's just wonderful how much he has talked about this and brought this into the public arena. He said in an Inc. magazine a few decades later, only, and he emphasized only, when we started focusing on the surprise, savoring the surprise, did we discover this giant market opportunity. And it was only then that they did that. They never could have sat in a room and done strategic planning to look for new product ideas. They could do that, but at least they're saying it previously was unimagined. They couldn't think their way through it. They had to experience their
Yeah.
way through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that motor that keeps us moving as we're savoring the surprise is, I think, one of the most uh, rich and difficult and interesting to talk about, which is doubt. Right.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
And and we I as we know, um being trained as researchers and becoming professors, we're often socialized and acculturated into a way of occupying the role where we should never doubt
Mm.
anything, or
Oh,
we should keep our doubt to ourselves, hidden, not share it in
yeah,
social settings where it might become generative in some
yeah,
way.
right. Yeah, I know it confronts us sometime when we were asked, so what's the so what of your research, or the dissertation research when
Yeah.
it comes forward on some of that. Yeah, and actually professionals are taught to know. We are taught to know. In fact, we teach our students in business schools to know.
Yes.
Don't really do a good job, or at least in my experience, and certainly I didn't get taught this way all along school, to not know, how to teach people how to not know, how to engage the unknown, what you don't know.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good at the operational and the strategic kinds of processes in business schools, but even change and courses on change really could bring discovery forward so much more than the bulk of them do traditionally with that. And in fact, the students, when I first started doing this, because I was testing it out for a number of courses with students at various levels, and they're like, what is this discovery stuff, But then when you see it in the everyday and even in the classroom, like, okay, would you be able to ask a question that you don't know the answer to, and
Yeah.
engage that, or
Yeah.
or maybe challenge something that is being said in a way that would be lead to open conversation, those kinds of. So that is doubt. So honestly, we pride ourselves as a knowledge society, a society of knowing.
Right.
And so we're taught. There's pressure on leaders also to know it all, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
whole Microsoft transformation was moving from the know it all to the learn it all.
Learn
And
it
they
all.
use discovery. The whole growth mindset is a discovery oriented idea to move forward from that and letting go of this know it all, kind of that optimizing the old formula, as I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
and moving away from those beliefs and everything that went with those beliefs and into the notion of learn it all and the mentoring, the coaching. There's a number of different practices that have led to the results are amazing in the 10 years that he has been CEO
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say, I think there's something important that I want to help ask you to help untangle for us. Um, when when we think doubt, and like as a untrained lay person,
Right.
I
Sure.
think, uh-oh, that sounds
Yeah.
like trouble.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep that away from me.
Yeah.
But you say that genuine doubt can
Mhm.
energize discovery.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
as a POS practitioner, researcher, when like energy is a precious resource, right? When the
Yes.
word energy enters the conversation, ears perk
Right.
up.
Yeah.
So how is the doubt that we want to stay away from different
Yeah.
from genuine doubt that energizes?
Yeah, yeah, I thank you for that because I work in doubt, and so that it just kind of takes some things for granted around that. I think so. One of the big differences, well, there is doubt, but genuine doubt, and there's self-doubt, and genuine doubt is neither of those. Um, and I'll just do it with self-doubt. So genuine doubt means that the situation has challenged it's maybe unexpected, it has popped up or something, and it impacts our beliefs. And we let it impact
Mm,
us. We let it impact, and we think about, we respond to it, we work it. And when we do that, doubt, genuine doubt, is the creative fuel of discovery.
mm, mm.
It helps us challenge and change, potentially change our at least one belief. We cannot create something new unless we challenge and change at least one belief. And you get a feel with Intuit and Play Pump what some of those everyday beliefs are. And so that's the genuine doubt part of this.
Okay.
You can doubt your methods, ideas,
Mhm,
tools, and beliefs, any of those, as a result of having let doubt in, so to speak.
mm.
And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about, maybe we could do that, about engaging this and how we do it and the discomfort
Okay.
of that.
Yeah.
As different from self-doubt.
Different from self-doubt.
Yeah,
And also, as you already mentioned, it's in the Bob Quinn kind of way, it's countercultural to counter normative to right to organizations that say be an expert and know and present your knowingness as a form of authority or status.
mhm,
So there's a question coming from a listener saying, given all that, right?
mhm,
Like, what have you learned about what in the organizations allows this doubt or makes it
mhm,
safer
mhm.
to use doubt to energize?
Yeah. Well, so it's really about the leaders in the organization and others. So the team and the major is a sense of flexibility of belief. It doesn't mean that we let go of beliefs. I mean, for example, Case Foundation held on to the notion of clean water, access to clean water was really important, right? So that they just moved off of the thing that was difficult, which was the play pump technology. So we access those beliefs around this. I'm trying to think of the best way. Help me out here a little bit. So share a little bit more about that question.
The question in specific is asking about middle managers, although
Uh-huh.
I think that's probably true for lots of people.
Mhm.
That there are organizational characteristics that make
Got
it feel pretty
yeah,
unsafe to doubt or to raise
for
your
sure.
doubts,
Mhm.
especially to think of them as energizing or helpful.
Yeah,
So,
and that would be yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
I get the
ideas
picture
about,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, you got
All
the
right.
groove,
No,
the
I think
vibe, right?
yeah, I mean, really, that's the key because there has to be a willingness to challenge and change belief.
Mm,
And
mhm,
that's the belief flexibility. If
mhm,
there is a belief, and I contrast with belief rigidity. And with belief rigidity, we are held captive by our beliefs. With belief flexibility, we hold our beliefs. We're not held captive by them. And we can have beliefs, but it's kind of like we need to recognize that our knowing, the beliefs, may be fallible, right?
mm, yeah,
Given, especially in light of experiences. I mean,
mhm,
we can track, and I have done this, some of organizational studies, case studies, a little bit few, around this whole return to the office challenge. You know,
mhm,
this issue keeps popping
mhm,
up and then it goes down and it pop and all different hybrid kinds of things. And it makes me really think that, and I've seen Microsoft's done a good job of bringing in discovery, but many have not. In fact, some are so rigid that it's the rigidity of belief is that you must be in the office or you must be at home. You know, I mean, it's this and when we're so rigid, we're held captive, we can never engage. And we would definitely not savor the surprise that
right.
challenge those norms and let alone move into exploring that. So I guess as a, um, if I'm in a situation, I would assess in that team or the organization how open, and actually I'm trying to develop a readiness assessment in the midst of this, and the how open are leaders and the organization to the willingness to at least entertain, challenge it, uh,
Mhm,
and potentially change belief, because that belief flexibility is the criterion that all the stories have that I've looked at.
Yes.
That, yeah.
And I appreciate in your writing how you highlight very everyday ways that we can emphasize this flexibility. So I know we're not going to talk tips until later, but in
Oh,
terms
no,
of
we could
just
do
the
that. Like
questions
confident.
you ask, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Questions are such a valuable everyday um, space for opening up doubt or closing it down.
Yeah, and there's been some research by POS scholars around the notion of confident humility that fits very much in this. I don't know, it's Carl Weick or Bob Sutton somewhere, so a number of them are working. It's the idea that we argue as if we're right. So this is so that we're not rigid we argue as if we're right,
Mm-hmm.
and we listen as if we're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hold both of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have too much belief and we can have too much doubt with
Right.
chaos. Too much doubt is chaos. And we need then some small wins and some other things to happen to start to make that more stable, right? But oftentimes we have too much belief and we need to do the questioning that you mentioned, or some other things like that, like the working on confident humility, being able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have a third motor, and I don't want to
Oh,
miss talking about it because
yeah,
it's
no, I know, but
the
surprise and doubt. So surprise is igniting
yeah,
discovery. Doubt is the creative fuel. It fuels. If
fuel.
it's probably the strongest, those two together really help us move away from prior patterns of belief and practice and open up toward new ones. And so launching new ways, it really from doubt to launching new ways is that move toward the
Forward.
new. Yeah.
Yes. And something that I appreciate so much about launching new ways in you're talking about discovery is that you emphasize how much it must be situated
Mm.
in the world in
Mm.
which the experiences are unfolding, and that you must be immersed in the particularities of
Mhm.
that world in order
Mhm.
for launching new ways to amplify discovery. So,
Yeah,
would you talk a little bit about that?
sure. I have not come across a story or a study of change that possibly could use discovery that does not go into the field, whatever that is, into the situation where it's happening. So it doesn't mean you stay there, but it does mean that there's this wonderful small little blurb at Harvard Business Review years ago. Don't just stand there, think. I mean, and you go out, you go to the situation, and that's the situated experimentation. To walking with
Mm.
is one. And actually in lean management, there's Gemba, there's a number of things and then if you infuse discovery into that, it really is a powerful kind of practice. So lean and bringing in discovery, so weaving it through, would definitely be a powerful practice, because you're wanting to find out, again, the discovery orientation is you want to find out what you don't know. It's easy essentially to confirm what you do know and affirm that. So you don't want to just validate, you want to discover. You want to discover something new around that. And you go into the field with the situate. So you want to get there because it was for Intuit, they could only really see a new possibility for a product after they went into the customer's place and locations. So the question that guides the launching new ways is, what other possibilities are there for doing things? What might be there? And how do we assess the plausibility of those possibilities for use in practice? And too often in change, we predefine the solution and
Yes.
then seek user buy-in, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's so different
Right.
from a
No
discovery.
discovery there.
There's no opportunity for discovery. I mean, we may get some
Yeah.
input from people saying, well, wait a minute, this software doesn't quite work the way it needs to be. We really need to gain user we need to access their understanding of what's going on. And then we can revise along the way and even include them in the change process somewhere along it. So the situation, the experience base is so critical to the whole discovery process because it's, as I said, experience teaches us by means of surprise, doubt, we then bring in, we ourselves are situated in that experience and we allow it, if we respond in a way that keeps discovery going, we learn new things. Yeah. You can tell
So,
I feel passionately about this.
yes, I
It's just such
can.
a no-brainer. I mean, I think about this because it is something we can do every day. But it is so, when we over prioritize the operational processes or the evaluative processes like performance appraisals, goal setting. I mean, for Stiver back then in field, it was that installation goal, that target that drove their whole action. And they never stopped to think about or to reflect on what they could have be doing differently along the way. Because that's overemphasized, I mentioned that before, organizations hide discovery. I mean, it's just kind of not
Mhm.
all there. And really, we know from research that the best solutions to challenges and issues require both operational and inventive processes, like discovery and validation evaluation. Both need to be partnered together. And that's what Microsoft does. Partner together to bring, and that's what Delta Care, there's a number, the stories in the book bring those two together in a very thoughtful way. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we all win when that happens. But when we close the
absolutely.
door to what we don't know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
that doesn't work. Yeah.
There's a question being asked by colleague of ours, Sue Ashford, in the chat
Hi, Sue.
about how this model that you're talking about, process, excuse me, that you're talking about is the same or different than talking about personal growth or personal
Mm,
change.
mm. Yeah, thank you for that question. So really, this is applicable to individual, organizational, and societal change. Through some of the stories in the book, actually, um, there's a wonderful one. I won't go into it, but it's with the Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program and Jim O'Connell, Dr. Jim O'Connell. There is personal growth along with organizational growth and change. And so every one of these, I can think of a number of them now. And in fact, in the Delta Care one, in the process of this, so in the process of the change, the organizational change, there can be personal growth. And also people can take this process to use in personal lives as well. And then societal, obviously there's some cases in the book
Yeah.
about that, but definitely personal growth. It's really, these have convinced me, the stories and the numbers, and I continue to collect them. So I'll gladly take any situations from people. It's the most important, one of the most anyway, I won't get too strong. One of the most important practices we can develop is this discovery process, the capacity to discover that enables any one of us individually and collectively to grow and thrive.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and it just works that way. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't know about that. I'm really on my soapbox about it. It's just such a no-brainer.
Wonderful. Well, let's
Yeah.
flip the coin over. There's another person asking in the Q&A window that technology is changing so fast.
Yeah.
The pace of my organization is overwhelming, and I feel like I have change fatigue.
Yeah.
Like, so if I wanted to keep open to surprise and I wanted to engage discovery, but I feel so exhausted by all these
Right.
demands for change. What does your work say to that?
Yeah. So then I would use, thank you for that question. That is an issue that is definitely widespread with these. So it does speak to that, and it's a little bit of a reverse around this. You would use surprise as a kind of a diagnostic and use it to provisionally so that you look at, there's a lot of different surprises. So your goal really is you have too much doubt going on, constant change, constant
Mm,
fatigue,
mhm,
right? What
mhm,
you want to do is get some settledness and make it less chaotic is my sense. That's the goal. That's the flip of trying to reduce the rigidity. You want to get some settledness in this.
mm,
And the way to do that would be, and talking with a couple different teams recently about this, and the leaders, the way is to look at the use of surprise as provisional. So you take a couple of the surprises that look, if you're a team leader, for example, I don't know the questioner's particular role, but if you're a team leader, you don't want to take on every surprise and embrace it and savor it. It just is not.
too much.
Uh, First of all, you want to look for those that are not just unexpected, but they impact some belief in the team or the organization that
Mhm,
matters
mhm,
around this.
okay,
So you can kind of assess that from what we've talked about today. And then what you do is, even if you still have a lot of them, then you want to sort through and say, which are the most promising? And let me provisionally go down a path of exploring it for a short bit. And
okay.
then what you do is to say, does it hold promise or is it a blind alley?
Mm,
And then if it's a blind alley, you can just drop it. I mean,
mhm,
I hope this helps. So the goal is stability and reducing the chaos because you have too much doubt
okay,
on it.
alright,
Similarly, small wins are great because they gain momentum in chaotic situations that can kind of see some progress and improvement to help you move more toward a settledness, I guess
yeah,
is how we say it. If we think of belief as settledness and
mm.
doubt as unsettledness, too much doubt is chaotic, and too much belief is really preventing discovery from happening.
We have 2 minutes left together,
Oh,
Karen. And, Anne in the audience is asking if an organization isn't particularly open to challenging the status quo, is
hmm.
there a good way to introduce more discovery? And I know you wanted to end with a couple of tips for
Yeah.
leaders and change makers as well. So maybe that part of what you can do is address Anne's question as you offer some tips.
So I think one of the ways for any part of this is and really you can journal, you can take a surprise journal yourself and just kind of start noticing when the surprise is. That's one. So you become more aware. And as you gain awareness of surprise and how it happens in your organization, then you can do a tentative, uh, a small experiment, a very small experiment about this. And it would be something where you would add another question to what people, how, just insert another question that is discovery oriented. Maybe it's even something like, oh, how could we think about this differently? Or what other options do we have? Or you could test how strong that rigidity is, right? To be able to do that in the moment. So it's very small experiments that you want to try because then you're going to get more information to have a better sense of what's going on there.
Yes. So, Anne, look up Karen Golden-Biddle and micro moves to
Oh,
learn
yeah, I
more.
did use the term micro moves. Yeah.
Karen, this has been a delightful
Lovely, lovely,
conversation.
Monica.
There's so much more to explore. So I just want to re-invite people to
I
grab
don't have
this
mine. Oh, maybe I do. No, I
beautiful
don't have
book
mine here. Yeah.
and to look up more of your work because you're conveying such richness and wisdom. And I wish you all the best of untapping the power of discovery as you go through the next chapter of the work you're doing. And please come back and share more with us too.
Thank you. Thank you. The center is terrific. Yeah, it's a good support. So
Thank you all for
thanks, Mike.
joining us today.
Thank you. And may you have much richness of surprise and doubt and discovery.